my name is Steve Snapp, and thank you for joining us on this episode for Salesforce for Building Materials. In this episode, we're going to go a little bit deeper into this concept that we've worked on called the lunch and learn process. Some of you call it lunch and learn, some of you call it continuing education. In either case, whenever we start a video, we want to talk about what problem were we trying to solve. So for those of you that use the technique of a lunch and learn to develop a relationship or to communicate product knowledge to an architect or an engineer or any kind of specifying firm, we wanted to make it very easy to manage not only the details associated with the lunch and learn, but also use the tool to help you identify and manage the strategic relationship that you're trying to build. Before we get started, I want to mention that we have 2 links in the video description you should know about. I'll mention these again at the end of the video if you'd like to keep watching. But I wanted you to know that we've included a link to our pricing video where we share the pricing for Salesforce Construction, and we've also included a link to our guided free trial. The guided free trial will allow you to start using Salesforce Construction immediately in your business while providing a step-by-step learning path. Now we've got another video on our channel where we go into some detail about the project record in Salesforce. And in the project record, we measure specific details about how many projects have been specified or how many have been awarded. So the lunch and learn process is designed to sort of fit with that concept of measuring or managing the impact that this particular entity, I'm talking about an architect here, what impact does that architect have on specifying your product, and what's your win rate, for lack of a better word, with that architect. So the lunch and learn process is designed to plug into that. I don't want to necessarily assume that if you're not getting business from an architect, you don't want to do a lunch and learn. In fact, it might be the opposite. If you're not getting specified, you might want to do a lunch and learn. The point is you now have data about that relationship so that you can make decisions about where you invest. So some might not invest in that. Some actually might identify that as, hey, this architect controls a lot of projects. We're not getting specified. Therefore, we need to push real hard on getting that lunch and learn scheduled and performed. Okay, so in this screen, I normally start at the dashboard, which shows a lot of those metrics that I was just describing. So normally I leave the dashboard and I go into the lunch and learn tab here. Now when you go into the lunch and learn tab, it shows you by default a list of recent lunch and learns. And so I'm just going to pull up one of the ones that I've been working on. Now I did a previous video where I go into a little bit more detail on just kind of the high level of the lunch and learn. Now I'm going to talk more about the attendees, or what we call the members, and the status associated with that. Now let me kind of build up to this so you kind of understand, if you haven't seen that video, a little bit of what's happening within the lunch and learn process. So the lunch and learn screen here on the left just describes the details associated with the actual event itself. So we talked about this particular topic, we talked about it with this particular architect, we did it on this date, etc. So those are the kind of details associated with the lunch and learn. But in addition to that, we also have a lunch and learn status. And so that status really tells us where in the cycle are we. Are we planning it? Have we scheduled it? Have we actually delivered it? And you'll also notice there's a couple of stages under delivered, like send the certificate emails and send a thank you email. So there's post lunch and learn follow-up automation here that sends those certificates to all the attendees, sends a thank you note, etc. So there's just some additional automation built into this. But I highlight a little bit of that in the previous video. What I want to talk about here are the members or the attendees. So you'll notice on the right-hand side of my screen, I have an area that we call the right region. And I've got a related list here that shows me all of the people that I've invited to the lunch and learn. Now, in addition to that, I also have some activity and some chatter capabilities. If you don't know what chatter is, in the Salesforce world, it's a messaging mechanism similar to posting on social media, where you can send posts to people on your team, you can coordinate things. So in this example, chatter could be very useful for making sure that the food's been ordered, or if someone wants something gluten-free or whatever, you can throw that into a chatter and send that to the coordinator and just tag them and say, hey, Susie wants to make sure that she gets a vegan sandwich or whatever. So that's an example of where chatter can be used. An activity is where you can specify hey, 3 days before the event, we want to make sure we get the materials sent out. 2 days before the event, we want to make phone calls or emails and confirm everybody, etc. So that's the purpose of activity in that example. So let's go from there now into the Lunch and Learn members, where we'll talk about the people that we've invited. So every person that you invite to a Lunch and Learn will go into the Lunch and Learn members. Now, the idea here is that if I open up one of these records, I can see a couple of things. So obviously I associate the contact person name with the Lunch and Learn event. So in this case, I've got Lucas Davis associated with this Lunch and Learn event. Now, Lucas Davis also has a status. And so Lucas might be interested, he might be registered, he might be attended, etc. And the idea there is that you might invite a lot of people and not everyone shows up. So there's a little bit of work involved in confirming who actually attended. And some businesses don't care so much about that. Some are very, very interested in who actually attended. So when I go back to my earlier comments about how am I using this to actually produce a result, there might be a key architect that I want to really make sure that I connect with, and not only connect with, but also share our information with. So in this example, if I had an invited or interested member, but they didn't attend for whatever reason, I would want to know that they didn't show up. So I wouldn't change them to attended in that example. So the whole point here is that this is where you get into the details of that individual person. You also put in their food preferences, the gluten-free vegan thing we talked about a second ago. Now, the purpose here is that at the end of the event, you change your registered attendees or members to attended. And as I showed earlier, when you go to send the email certificates to all of your users, when you click that option that I showed you earlier to send the certificate, it goes and sends that certificate to all the attended members, and it changes this status to certificate generated. So this is a kind of a tedious paperwork thing. Some people have dedicated staff for this, so this may not be a huge problem for you. But for some of our clients who wanted to be more refined and more efficient, the idea was we want to be able to automatically send the certificate to the 15 people that attended, and we wanted to be able to do that in one step. So the big idea there is if you identify that someone attended, and now you've listed all of these members as attended, when you change this from planning or delivered to send certificates, it will then send their AIA certificate directly to them. And the final thing I'll show is just a quick glance on what that certificate looks like. So in this example, what we're sending is a dynamic link in the email. And so if I click on that dynamic link, you'll see the certificate that they're receiving. So no longer are you having to generate a PDF and email it and generate 15 PDFs. You simply fill out the Lunch and Learn record, you fill out the attendee. If they've attended, you tag them as attended, and then at the end of the process you say send all the certificates, and they get an email with this link up here, and they can print it, they can frame it, they can file it in their email, etc., and all that's fine. But what this also opens up, and I'll end on this, is that you can also send all of the attendee information directly to the governing body, whether it's AIA or XYZ. You can then take that information and automatically send it to the governing body, so they now have a record of the CEU credits. And I'm not sure, not all of our clients do that, so again, it may not be that important to you, but the point is to make the process of managing the actual event itself easier, but to also use that information to advance your strategy of influencing those specifiers that sort of control whether or not your product gets on those specs. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me. I know your time is very limited. I've included 2 possible next steps in the video description. These include a link to our pricing video where we share the pricing for Salesforce Construction, and I've also included a link to our guided free trial. The guided free trial will allow you to start using Salesforce Construction immediately in your business while providing a step-by-step learning path. The guided free trial also introduces what we call the Guaranteed Quick Start, which is several pre-scheduled calls with our team to help make any light configuration changes like pick lists or reports, and also help you migrate any data that you want in your free trial. If you're not ready for those 2 choices, please spend some time here on our YouTube channel learning more about the specific problems we've solved for Salesforce Construction. Thank you again for some of your time, and we'll see you soon.